Yeah, I was going to say, it seems to me that Ukraine has to keep having victory to keep the West engaged, because at some point, I mean, if they lose the engagement of the West, most of the West, because we know that there's, France and Germany and some other countries um, aren't quite as aligned as we talked about last week. You know, what are the consequences? I assume if Ukraine continues to be victorious, it keeps the West psyched up and engaged. But what are the consequences when Ukraine begins to look like they're losing some territory?
Yeah, I mean that it's difficult to predict at what point Russia will be satisfied with a partial gain there, right? And
Mm,
interested in freezing this conflict until its next chapter. During the intervening period, both parties will be trying to rearm and prepare for the next one. This is it's difficult to say. I think Ukrainians will be preparing some kind of a counter offensive in the south, between Rostov and Crimea. The resolve is not only a problem on the Russian side. The some of these brigades that have been engaged in the Donbass for over 3 months have only very recently been rotated after some, I wouldn't call it a mutiny, but pretty high level of dissatisfaction that they were just left there to die, on this meat grinder. And you might have noticed that Zelensky himself went twice to the region,
yes.
once to Kharkiv and then on a trip to Zaporozhye and then Lysychansk, which is very close to the front line in Donbass. And then, of course, improves the morale. And if you help these people to rotate back to see their families, and before going back to the front line, is also very helpful. They know that someone takes care of them rather than sending them to hell.
Yes.
It's so the issues of resolve. I mean, this is this human limits, right? If you live for 3 months under artillery fire, sometimes longer, because sometimes the people had been on that front line for longer.
Yes.
This is a war of lesser intensity that continued for 8 years prior to that. So a lot of veterans there, and it's good that there is rotation. It's also good news because it means that there are fresh troops, and maybe I don't have a confirmation. Maybe some of those battles in Severodonetsk are actually conducted by those fresh new troops from reconstituted brigades. But just the number of brigades that go in, that's telling me that there's been a lot of losses within each of those, in just terms of human lives or injuries and so on.